Welcome back to Racing Rundown. On today's video, we are going to be discussing a couple of Group 1s at Epsom on this the second episode of Racing Rundown around the world. Of course, this weekend we have the highlight feature, the Epsom Derby, which we are going to wait until tomorrow to talk about that, obviously because we don't have the declareds for that. And also, I'd like to see if it's at all possible to do that show with Eric. So we're going to talk about the two Group 1s on Oaks Day, obviously the Oaks, as well as the Coronation Cup, which you see on your screen right now. Only 6 runners in this Coronation Cup. We'll start off with this one first because it is the first one on the card. Apologies for not scrolling too well there. You can see all the 6 runners for this race, and we'll get right into this. Right now, the favorite, or the best odds right now is for Pile Driver, the returning champion of this race. He won this race last year, and Pile Driver is going to be where I'm going to get to the theme of how I'm talking about this race, and that is looking at last out's Dubai Shima Classic for him, as well as Hakum, who is another horse that I really like in this race. So Pile Driver, as I already mentioned, won this race last year, but he's coming out of the Dubai Shima Classic. If you listen to Racing Rundown after we talked about the Dubai Shima Classic back in March, Eric had a comment, and he said that at the end of the year, we were going to look back at the Dubai Shima Classic and see and marvel at how many good horses came out of that race. Well, we're talking about that 2.5 months later, and already that race has produced a Group 1 winner in Alan Kerr last time out in the Tattersall's Gold Cup. Unfortunately, I didn't do Racing Rundown around the world that week for that race, but if you listen to me on Racing Rundown, you know I really liked Alan Kerr. I made a lot of money off of Alan Kerr in that race because I did bet a ton of money on him to win in that race. So that was certainly very nice to get. But Pile Driver's coming out of this Dubai Shima Classic. He had a little bit of trouble inside in there. I don't know that it was anything that cost him the race, but obviously with a lot more horses in the Dubai Shima Classic than are going to be in this race, that's certainly something that you have to consider with him. He won this race last year. He's already gotten the trip over Epsom. He's been Group 1 class in multiple occasions. Obviously, this race in the Shima Classic, ran a very good race behind Glory Vaz and the Hong Kong Vaz in December of last year. So he's the favorite right now. Depending on the market, the one that I'm currently using right now, he is the favorite. The second choice is Manobo. I don't really care for him too much in this race. Not that he's really done anything wrong as of late. He was undefeated before the Dubai Gold Cup. So another horse we're talking about from that Dubai World Cup Carnival. He was second to Stay Foolish there. He didn't get a great ride from William Buick in that race either. But I just like the horses coming out of the Shima Classic more so than I like him. I'll talk about High Definition next. He's coming out of that Tattersall's Gold Cup that I referenced with Alan Kerr. He's not a bad play in this race, but I'm a little bit nervous about his ability to get the 1.5 miles. You look at his form in the 3 races that he's gone 1.5 miles or longer, they've all been pretty poor efforts. Now, 2 of them were Group 1 classic races. One of them was the St. Ledger, the other one was the Irish Derby, and he lost those races to Hurricane Lane both times, but those were very much well-beaten efforts. And then you see also going 1.5 miles at York, he was beaten by Yabir there. So a little bit worried about that, and that's why, even though I really liked the effort that he had behind Alan Kerr, and Alan Kerr is a horse that I really, really like, so I have to respect High Definition. And I thought about whether or not I might pick him the past week, but I'm ultimately going to look against him because I question the distance with him. He could get it, but the horse that I'm going to go with in here is Hakum. Hakum also similarly coming out of that Dubai Shima Classic. He was 7th there, so a little bit less off than Pile Driver was, but he was beaten less than 2 lengths there. And excuse me for not having this race pulled up, so I'm going to pull it up just because I want to show you how incredibly insane the amount of talent in this race was. So we're looking at the top 8 horses right now. 6 horses finished in front of Hakum. All of them have come back to win a Group 1, with the exception of all of them were Group 1 winners before or after the race, with the exception of Authority. And Authority was probably, among the seven horses that I'm talking about, is one of the ones that I think higher of than most of them. So that really puts into perspective how good of a race this field was. Obviously, the winner, Shahryar, Yabir Breeders' Cup winner, pile driver, already referenced him. Uberleben was the Japanese Oaks winner, and then Alan Kerr, his victory in the Tattersall's Gold Cup. So the form from the Shima Classic has been was incredible going in, and I imagine it's still going to stay incredible. And for Hakoum, his form has been rather good. Mile and a half, he has success there. Might be a horse that I would prefer a bit longer with, but he's won a couple of times going a mile and a half before, so I'm not really too concerned about that. I'm going to play against Pile Driver with him. Just because I want to play this angle of the horses coming out of the Shima Classic. And Pile Driver's coming out of the Shima Classic too, but a little bit of trying to play against the favorite, also trying to really hammer home this Dubai Shima Classic point. Should also mention the 3-horse Living Legend did beat Yabir at Newmarket on the 29th of April. He wasn't a horse that I found too much upside in, but if you liked that effort against Yabir and you like Yabir a lot, he could be a horse you could go to, especially if you're playing this race in the United States. He will definitely float up with some of the other prices in this race, but Hakoum for me in this race, and once again, just anything from the Shima Classic is my point. Just basically this entire year, you get any horses from the Shima Classic, play those horses because you'll make a lot of money off of them. Now we're going to move on and talk about the Oaks, the feature race of Friday. I'm going to be rather frank here. I am not going to be going against the favorite Emily Upjohn. She's been as short as even money at points in the market, so it makes sense why. You look at her 3 for 3 in her career. The trial that she had last out at York was incredible, and then she was a 9.5 length winner in her first start of the year at Sandown. So really, there's not too much, in my opinion, that you can knock her on. And I wasn't really too into too many of the other horses in here. I don't care too much for either the O'Brien fillies. They were Tuesday. I'll go to Tuesday right now. She was second in the Irish Guineas, third in the 2000 Guineas at Newmarket. Both of those races, again, not great. Nothing you can say, oh, well, she's a bad horse or anything like that. But, she's also, it's just, she left a lot to be desired there. And I don't think she takes that effort and runs a winning effort against Emily Upjohn. But I could be wrong here, but I'm going to take that stand with the 2 O'Brien horses. Concert Hall, her stablemate, didn't have a bad race when stretching out to a mile and a quarter in April. It should be mentioned in her 2 Group 1 races, she was running behind Classic winner in the Irish Guineas and then her stablemate Tuesday. And then she was in that Bet 365 Fillies mile at Newmarket, which has come back to produce some incredible horses, and Spiral, the winner of that race, obviously. But you look at Emily Upjohn, her form is great. She looks like she'll get the distance just fine. I will say, though, and I did also want to mention her stablemate, Nashua, who some people, obviously is a second choice. She'll probably be the horse that most people who try to beat Emily Upjohn will go with in here. The filly that I felt, if you're going to try to beat her, might be your best option is With the Moonlight. I really liked her last effort at Newmarket, stretching out to a mile and a quarter for the first time, and also off a bit of a break there. But I will also add that I wasn't crazy about the effort that she had going a mile in October at Newmarket, but you could always make the case that, she developed over the break, and the distance certainly did help her out there. I think that makes a ton of sense if you were to make that argument. Again, she's just the alternative. I'm not picking her, but if you're looking for someone to go against the heavy favorite in this race with, she could be your option. Did also want to mention that Thoughts of June was the filly that she beat last out in her most recent effort. Above the Curve did come back to win the Group 1 at Longchamp that we talked about last week on Racing Rundown. Outside of that, again, you're not going to find me trying to take too much against Emily Upjohn. Like I said, if you got to take against her, if you're someone who must bet against the favorite, then I give you With the Moonlight. I did like her last effort. Maybe she's improved off that break. It's quite possible she has improved off that break. We'll see what ends up happening there. But I think just with the 2 efforts that Emily Upjohn has turned in this year, it's going to be really difficult to see who's going to beat her. And I'm not going to really try to manufacture that. So just to recap, for the Coronation Cup, Hakoum, really play, though, on the Dubai Shima Classic. I don't have a problem with Pile Driver, but I am going to try to see what I can get with Hakoum. and then no reason in my eyes to play against Emily Upjohn. With that being mentioned, that's it for this segment. We're going to have something for the Derby tomorrow or early Friday morning. Eric may or may not be joining me for that, but we will be sure to be covering that when the time comes for that. So we'll see you for that. Have a good one, and be sure to check out episode 161 of Racing Rundown. We'll talk about some of these races as well as everything coming up this weekend in the United States. Have a good one.